Everyone. Welcome to Coffee Time Career Chat. My name is Patricia Hayes. If you're joining for the first time, welcome. I am an executive advisor, career empowerment coach, and authentic networking strategist. And that means that I love to do all things to help people who are looking to up-level in their career and their business, but are underutilizing their professional relationships. And so I help them figure out how to make that happen, how to do it in an empowered way, and to put their best foot forward as they're, leaning into achieving their goals and their dreams. So thank you so much for joining. Sometimes on Wednesdays, I've been doing a little insert where maybe I don't have an interview schedule. So we go back to our old schedule, which we're going to do today, because apparently I struck a nerve on Monday where we were talking about 3 strategies to overcoming your reconnection fears. And I kind of threw out there some reconnection fears, and then I started talking about the strategies. Well, my goodness, apparently I did not spend enough time on the actual reconnection fears because I got feedback on that part. So I decided, you know what, let's go on back, take a little step back. Let's talk about those things and how we can, call out our reconnection fears with love, of course. So we're going to take a little jaunt through that here today, so that we can, come full circle when we're talking about building those relationships, pursuing our higher goals, the need to connect with people or reconnect with people. It is very, very common to hit a wall where you're like, I can't do that because, or, whatever those reasons are, right? And so we're going to talk about those because very obviously they're very much based in limiting beliefs, and there's something that's causing you to do that. So we're going to take a few quick moments here to talk about that, let that simmer so that you can put those two things together and go back and watch the previous session. And now hopefully we'll have a really full and complete picture. We just kind of go with the flow here, and I'm all about making sure to dig deeper when it's needed and necessary so that we can cover all of our bases. Okay. So, when we're talking about the 3 biggest reconnection fears, I laid out 3. There's way more, I'm sure, but these are the ones that are the most common, that when someone says, well, I can't, or I don't think that's possible, because these are the things that are normally coming up. So especially when I'm coaching people in my one-on-one sessions, or if I'm in a group and something comes across, these are the things that I hear the most often, for reasons why someone can't, or they say they don't believe that they can reconnect with someone in their professional relationship network. Okay. Number 1 is this feeling of not being worthy, right? And what does that mean? Well, worthiness is about being enough. So you're feeling like you're not enough in order to engage with with a person or a group or whatever. What does that look like? So perfect example. Let's say that, there's a project you're working on. There's this person who you really would be like, oh, that would be my dream person to connect with. But, either let's say they're higher up in the company, or there's some well-known speaker or a leader in the community that you don't think or believe that they will want to give you the time of day because you're not, quote, at their level. And that is about not being enough, right? That is absolutely an embedded limiting belief where you're like, you just decide you've cut off an opportunity, a really great opportunity perhaps, just because, or not not to belittle it, but because there's this feeling of I'm not enough, therefore that person's not going to want to engage with me. And we're going to talk about, before we get through, how you can, some other ways to help get rid of those limiting beliefs, right? But when we're talking about that worthiness piece, it's really important to think about, where's that coming from? Like there's always a story behind it. Each one of these things, there's always a story about it. So I encourage you to go take a look at that. Sit down, that reflection time, that journaling time. What is coming up for you? Because normally it's not about the thing that's actually happening, it's about something else that happened in the past, right? Maybe there's a confidence issue. Maybe there's something where, you're just kind of like, oh, I don't think I can, I don't have enough credentials, all of those things. When those issues come up of I don't have enough credentials, I don't have the right degree, I don't have the right job, I don't have the right position, I'm not in that right space, then that is about, being enough and how you are valuing who you are, because these people haven't told you that, right? You're telling yourself that. So we have to acknowledge that. The second reconnection fear that I brought up was one about insufficiency. So that's where you're like, there's not, this is the having enough, right? There's some overlap with worthiness, but a lot of times the insufficiency is more about having some external thing, right? So it's not just about who you are internally, but it's like, I don't have enough money, enough time, I don't have enough friends in the right places, whatever. It's about having enough. And so there's an insufficiency that you're saying that's the reason why you can't connect with the person that you want to, the group that you want to engage in. Okay. And the reality about things where there's insufficiency is a lot of times, number one, it's probably not true. Like most of the time, we really don't need to have those things in order to reach out and connect with someone most of the time, right? Very rarely. And the second thing is sometimes maybe it is, maybe there's something you do need to have in order to connect with someone or to get to it, but it can be something very simple, right? Maybe it's just literally calling someone else in our network to say, hey, can you get me connected to that person? So maybe you don't have a direct access to that person, that group, that thing, but you know someone who does. And so it's about asking. And a lot of times we're uncomfortable asking for help, right? Or because it seems to imply that that you're not enough, that you're lacking in some way. You see how these things start circling back around, right? Start spiraling out. The third reconnection fear that I mentioned and brought up is a rejection. Plain and simple. There's not a whole lot else to add to that. It's bottom line. I'm afraid that if I reach out, that they're not going to respond, that they're going to tell me no, that that is just not going to be a good situation. And that again is us bringing in a story that we're telling ourselves as justification for not taking the action that could give us a different result. Okay? So when we're talking about that, what I want you to remember is those are the stories that are going on off in our head. And I always, excuse me, like to mention, we have to get negative Nelly out of our head because she shows up all the time and starts chitter chattering in our heads, saying a whole bunch of negative things, being unnecessary, right? And telling us basically a bunch of lies, or at best, at the minimum, untruths, right? Half truths. So we have to step back from that and look at what's really going on and what is a common thread for all three of these. Again, there could be multiple things, but here is the most common thread that ends up feeding all of these, and that is this issue of comparitis, right? We're comparing ourselves to someone, something, to how we think something's supposed to be. And so we're afraid, well, no, I can't do that because my situation doesn't look like that. It's that comparing syndrome. And we really want to make sure that we are aware of it. So when we're looking at ways to rid ourselves of those limiting beliefs, one of the first things we have to do is acknowledge the elephant in the room. And that's literally, that's why I said calling out what it is we're doing, saying, thinking, believing. And it doesn't have to be, again, this is not about self-judgment or being ugly with ourselves in any way, but very much about saying, wait, where did that thought come from? And what is that based in? And when you do that, you are now putting it front and center on the table to acknowledge it. Because remember, you have a goal, right? You're not networking just to be networking. That's not what we do in this space, right? We're not just reaching out just to be saying it so that we can, gather up a bunch of trophies. If that's what you're doing, this is not the space for you, because that's not what I teach. That's not how we act. That's not how we engage, right? We're talking about building relationships that last. We're talking about building sustainable relationships on purpose, with integrity. And you're doing that because there's a goal that you're trying to reach. There's a dream you're wanting to achieve, whether it's professionally in your career, whether it's, with a new business or a business that you're up leveling, whatever it may be. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about reaching out, connecting. How can we support those goals and those dreams with the relationships that we're building? And so that said, if that's the goal that we really want to achieve and we really want to go for, we have to break down those walls, pull back the covers on the things that will stand in our way to achieving that goal. And that means pulling back the covers on those limiting beliefs of being, of unworthiness, of insufficiency, of fear of rejection. Okay. So we want to pull back those covers, acknowledge the elephant in the room, and lay it out. And then the second thing we have to make sure we do, as we are working towards, because it is a journey, it is a process, is to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And this is really tough for some people, right? Because we like being in our comfort zone, even if it means we're stuck. And that is a really tough place to be, where you have a desire to go, do, be, achieve more, but you're stuck because you're scared about taking that step. And so the reality is the action has to be taken, right? The step has to be taken in order for you to get to that next level, in order for you to start the journey towards pursuing that next level. So the bottom line, we got to get comfortable being uncomfortable and recognize it as part of the growth process that it is. Okay? Super, super important. And then lastly, I got 4 things. The third one is celebrate your wins. Show gratitude for where you are right now today. We do not celebrate our wins often enough, especially women. Okay? We're like chugging along, acknowledge, okay, yeah, that was great, and then go on, because then it's the next, oh, but I'm lacking in this next step. Step back, like sit and wallow in that win. And it doesn't have to be something big in order for it to be justified to celebrate. Again, we put all these limiting beliefs, even in good things. It's like, oh, well, that's not really that important. Okay, that was nice, but there's so much more. Cut out the but, right? And step back and acknowledge, like, wow, I really, reached out to 10 people this week, and I did not think I could do that. Or wow, I just had the most fabulous connection call that I was not expecting to have today. What made it so great? Like, sit in it, think about it. How can you replicate it? Right? Because when we start feeding ourselves those positives, those great things, then we can replicate it and continue to build it. And when you build in and create those wins, those things to celebrate, show that gratitude for what is you were able to achieve that day, that moment, you start crowding out those negatives, right? negative Nelly goes over and sits on the passenger seat, and she just has to be quiet because it's like, hey, things are going great. And even if there's a flaw or something that falls down, it's like, yeah, but guess what? I made the effort, right? And so now I know what to do differently. So celebrate your wins. And I would be remiss if I did not say, finally, to make sure you get an accountability partner. And this can't be just any old person, right? There has to be someone who's willing to be engaged with you on a regular basis, to offer constructive criticism, and to support you and to be your personal cheerleader when you do accomplish something. And sometimes we can't find that person, so you got to hire a coach, right? That's what we are here for, right? That's what we help you do, to push past whatever those challenges are so that you can get to the goals and the dreams and the things that you're really trying to seek to achieve. Okay. I do this type of work all the time when I'm working with my clients. And while people are like, well, aren't you supposed to be talking about networking and empowerment? But yeah, most of the time, before we can even get to that, I have to work through what I'm hearing, which is a lot of times we have confidence issues. There's a lack of, security. There are these worthiness issues. There's a fear of rejection. There are other things that basically amount to some limiting beliefs that we have to address in order to scrub and lay a good foundation so that we can build and achieve the goals that they're really seeking to go after. Okay. And so, we all learn. I had a fabulous conversation myself with one of my coaching colleagues yesterday where that light bulb went off. And she's like, well, why are you holding back on saying that you help people work through these things? Because they have to get through them in order to implement the strategies that you have built in this framework in order to really build those strong, professional, sustainable relationships that will take them to the next level. Okay. So there we are. We had a little chit chat about calling out those reconnection fears with love, how we can, help to rid ourselves of those limiting beliefs. And remember, please, that this is a journey, right? And as you grow, it will, there will be a new challenge, there will be a new level. And guess what? That's something to celebrate because it means you are on the right path, you're growing, and you are getting to where you want and need to be in order to build those relationships that will help you to achieve your long-term goals and dreams, and leave the legacy that you really want and desire to have. All right. So there I am. There we go. Thanks so much for joining. I'm looking forward to following up. Let me know what you're thinking about that. Drop some comments down in the comment section or DM me. Looking forward to it. And if we need to set up a connection call, let me know. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.